In the next examples, we will compare investments into two different stocks. Okay, and we will again stick to three possible states of the economy: boom, normal, recession. In some problems in this class, for example, in the homework assignments, you may see only two states, let's say good and bad, or boom and recession, or three states, or four states. I don't think I recall seeing more than four states of the economy, although you can technically have as many states of the economy as you like. Okay. So let's look at this problem. We have a 20% of the boom state, a 50% of the normal state, and a 30% of the recession state. The return on stock of firm A is 30% in the boom, 12% in normal, minus 10% in recession. The return on the stock of firm B is minus 5% in boom, 7% in normal, 15% in recession. Separately, let's focus on stock A and calculate its expected return, variance, and standard deviation. And then we do that separately for stock B. For stock A, just like in the earlier examples, we would need to look at the boom state and multiply the probability of the boom state by the return on stock A in the boom state. In decimals, that's 0.2 times 0.3. Then we add a similar product for the normal state. The probability of normal is 50%. The return on stock A in the normal state is 12%. So I'm adding 0.5 times 0.12. And then I'm adding the same product for the last, the recession state. 30% probability, or 0.3, multiplied by negative 10% return, or negative 0.1 in decimals. The sum of these three products gives me 0.09 in decimals, or a 9% expected return. So I'm expecting my money to grow on average by 9% every year in the future, based on what I know about the possibilities and how likely they are. Then, using the formulas from before, I can calculate the variance of stock A returns, which gives me 0.0201. The square root of variance gives me the standard deviation for stock A, 0.1418 in decimals, which is 14.18% standard deviation. Then I need to do the same math but for stock of company B. So what information will I need to use? The first column, the probabilities of boom, normal, and recession, 20%, 50%, and 30% respectively, and the information on stock B. I don't need the information on stock A. For stock B, minus 5% in boom, 7% return in normal, 15% return in recession. So just like I did it for stock A, I'm multiplying the probability by the return in that same state of the economy, and then I'm adding those products across all states, which gives me a 7% expected return. The variance is 0.0048 when I use all numbers in decimals, and the square root of my variance is 0.0693 in decimals, which is 6.93% standard deviation. Okay, so let's answer the following question. Which stock would you say is more attractive to investors, stock A or stock B? Usually the answers are it's stock A because you make on average more money, and that's true. Your expected return on stock A is 9%. Your expected return every year on stock B is 7%. So 9% is better than 7% for the expected annual return. However, you can also compare the amounts of risk of the two stocks. If you compare the values we got for the standard deviations. So the standard deviation for stock A is 14.18%, and the standard deviation for stock B returns is only 6.93%. Which one is better? It's lower for stock B, which means lower fluctuations in actual returns, which means less uncertainty about what the return may be every year. So the returns are kind of closer together, right? You can almost see it if you look at the table with the given information. The returns on stock A are kind of much wider apart. So the range goes between minus 10% and 30%. Whereas on stock B, the range is between minus 5% and only 15%. So the three returns on stock B are much closer together than the three returns on stock A. And mathematically, we can, prove that by calculating the standard deviations and double checking that it is a smaller number for stock B than for stock A. And so overall, which stock would you buy? A, with the better return but a worse amount of risk, or stock B, with a lower return but a much better, lower amount of risk? There is no correct answer to this kind of question. It's basically up to you. It's a matter of personal preference, whether you're okay with, your money going up and down by a lot every year, but on average, you're guaranteed a better, increase in your money every year. Or whether you are a more risk-averse person. So you don't want your money to fluctuate too much. You prefer a lower standard deviation. But of course, if you don't risk, you don't win, right? If you're not taking your chances, then you will not be rewarded with a high return. And your return every year on average will be only 7%.